continued their low-pitched conversation. Kaladin stood to the side of Dalinar's soldiers, exhausted, with the members of Bridge 4. Sadeas spared a glance for them. Matal stood in the crowd and had been watching Kaladin's team the entire time, red-faced. Matal probably knew that he would be punished, as Lamaril had been. They should have learned. They should have killed Kaladin at the start.
They tried. They failed.
He didn't know what had happened to him, what had gone on with Syl and the words in his head. It seemed that Stormlight worked better for him now. It had been more potent, more powerful. But now it was gone, and he was so tired, drained. He'd pushed himself and Bridge 4 too far.
Too hard.
Perhaps he and the others should have gone to Kholin's camp. But Teft was right. They needed to see this through.
He promised. He promised he would free us from Sadeas.
And yet, where had the promises of Light Eyes gotten him in the past? The High Princes broke off their conference, separating, stepping back from one another.
Well, your men are obviously tired, Dalinar. We can speak later about what went wrong, though I think it is safe to assume that our alliance has proven unfeasible.
Unfeasible? A kind way of putting it.
He nodded toward the bridgemen.
I will take these bridgemen with me to my camp.
I'm afraid I cannot part with them.
Surely they aren't worth much to you. Name your price.
I'm not looking to sell.
I will pay 60 emerald bromes per man.
Not for 1,000 each, Dalinar. Take your soldiers and go! Leave my property here.
Do not press me on this, Sadeas.
Suddenly, the tension was back. Dalinar's officers lowered hands to swords, and his spearmen perked up, gripping the hafts of their weapons.
Do not press you? What kind of threat is that? Leave my camp. It's obvious that there is nothing more between us. If you try to steal my property, I will have every justification in attacking you.
Dalinar stood in place. He looked confident, though Kaladin saw no reason why.
And another promise dies.
In the end, for all his good intentions, this Dalinar Kholin was the same as the others. Kaladin froze, then spun around. Dalinar Kholin had summoned his massive Shardblade. It dripped beads of water from having just been summoned. His armor steamed faintly, stormlight rising from the cracks. Sadeas stumbled back, eyes wide. His Onagar drew their swords. Adolin Kholin reached his hand to the side, apparently beginning to summon his own weapon. Dalinar took one step forward, then drove his blade point first into the middle of the blackened glyph on the stone. He took a step back.
For the bridgemen.
What?
The blade. In exchange for your bridgemen, all of them. Everyone you have in camp. They become mine to do with as I please, never to be touched by you again. In exchange, you get the sword.
Sadeas looked down at the blade, incredulous.
This weapon is worth fortunes. Cities, palaces, kingdoms.
Do we have a deal?
Father, no! You...
Dalinar raised a hand, silencing the younger man. He kept his eyes on Sadeas.
Do we have a deal?
Kaladin stared, unable to move, unable to think. Sadeas looked at the Shardblade, eyes full of lust. He glanced at Kaladin, hesitated just briefly, then reached and grabbed the blade by the hilt.
Take the storming creatures!
Dalinar nodded curtly, turning away from Sadeas.
Let's go.
They're worthless, you know! You're of the 10 fools, Dalinar Kholin! Don't you see how mad you are? This will be remembered as the most ridiculous decision ever made by an Alethi High Prince!
Dalinar didn't look back. He walked up to Kaladin and the other members of Bridge 4.
Go. Gather your things and the men you left behind. I will send troops with you to act as guards. Leave the bridges and come swiftly to my camp. You will be safe there. You have my word of honor on it.
He began to walk away. Kaladin shook off his numbness. He scrambled after the High Prince, grabbing his armored arm.
Wait! You... That... What just happened?
Dalinar turned to him, Then the High Prince laid a hand on Kaladin's shoulder, the gauntlet gleaming blue, mismatched with the rest of his slate-gray armor.
I don't know what has been done to you. I can only guess what your life has been like. But know this, you will not be bridgemen in my camp, nor will you be slaves.
But
what is a man's life worth?
the slave masters say one is worth about 2 emerald bromes.
And what do you say?
A life is priceless.
Coincidentally, that is the exact value of a Shardblade. So today, you and your men sacrificed to buy me 2,600 priceless lives. And all I had to repay you with was a single priceless sword. I call that a bargain.
You really think it was a good trade, don't you?
Dalinar smiled in a way that seemed strikingly paternal.
For my honor, unquestionably. Go and lead your men to safety, soldier. Later tonight, I will have some questions for you.
Kaladin glanced at Sadeas, who held his new blade with awe.
You said you'd take care of Sadeas. This is what you intended?
This wasn't taking care of Sadeas. This was taking care of you and your men. I still have work to do today.
Dalinar found King Elhokar in his palace sitting room. Dalinar nodded once more.